They say home is where the heart is. That is, until you're told you can't leave. Then it might feel more like a prison. Now, imagine the entire population of the United States having to stay home in a lockdown. That's over 330 million people. But what does a lockdown actually mean? Why would the US go under lockdown? And how would it affect you? This is What If, and here's what would happen if the US were under lockdown. A lockdown would have huge ramifications on the economy and everyday life of Americans. Job loss, recession, and an increase in anxiety and depression are all consequences of a lockdown. So, what would push the US to such a major step? And what would that look like? An international pandemic is probably the only thing that would force the US into lockdown. Why? Well, in the case of a highly contagious virus, scientists and health experts urge social isolation and self-quarantine as the best and most important ways to stop the spread of disease. A key part of this, to isolate healthy people too. But seeing as healthy people might be less likely to volunteer self-isolation, the government might decide to step in and mandate that people don't leave their home except for essential activities. What are essential activities? Well, take grocery shopping and essential jobs like medical staff or garbage collection as examples. And don't forget truck drivers. They're the backbone of the food supply chain. America has already been facing a shortage of truck drivers since 2018 and could face even more shortages with the viral pandemic. But what about farmers? Luckily, because farming happens in rural areas, experts don't think there will be too much disruption to agriculture. But with the combination of panic buying and a shortage of truck drivers, grocery stores can find it difficult to keep their shelves stocked. Other than these essential jobs and going to grocery stores, you're pretty much stuck at home. No going to school, no going out to restaurants or bars, no retail shopping, no group gatherings. If you're lucky, you could still work from home. This would offer some sort of routine and distraction throughout the day, as well as necessary income. If you're in an industry such as travel, food services, or brick-and-mortar retail, then you're not so lucky. You would lose your income for an undefined amount of time. Loss of income for many people puts them at risk of losing the roof over their head. 18 million people in the US spend over 50% or more of their income on rent or mortgage. To help ease this burden, states may put holds on evictions and foreclosures during a lockdown. This happened during the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic. Loss of income also affects the economy as a whole and can cause panic in the financial markets. On March 16, 2020, the Dow plunged nearly 3,000 points. This was one of the largest point drops in America's history and happened as everyday life came to a grinding halt amid the threat of COVID-19. The airline industry alone sought a $50 billion bailout in 2020, with an estimated loss of $63 to $113 billion globally. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, only about 1/3 of the U.S. is able to work from home. It can be difficult to work from home if you're not used to it, especially if your spouse and kids are home with you. Not to mention the feelings of anxiety and depression, which are common with isolation and uncertainty. These feelings can make it very difficult to focus on your work. It gets more difficult if you have kids. Not only do you have to get some work done during the day, but you also have to homeschool your kids and provide entertainment for them. Apart from the boredom of staying at home, why would a lockdown cause anxiety and depression? Well, humans are social beings. Even if you enjoy solitude, which is different from isolation, physical touch is still a very important form of communication. One you might not know you miss until you don't have it anymore. In a study performed after the 2003 SARS outbreak, individuals who were quarantined often had high levels of psychological distress. This was not just from isolation, but also a feeling of uncertainty from a lack of clear or reliable information. A nationwide lockdown of more than 330 million people would have huge mental and economic consequences. But is it the best way to stop a virus pandemic? Well, it does slow it down. We know that slowing the spread of a disease means that hospitals will be better equipped to handle patients' urgent needs and save lives. But a mandatory geographic quarantine is the most severe form of a lockdown and would probably be seen as unconstitutional in the U.S. Instead, the U.S. federal government typically provides support, funding, and expert opinions while leaving city and state officials to decide on specific measures. Closing schools, banning bars and restaurants, canceling all events, and urging people to work from home were all mandates that happened during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. In times of pandemics and lockdowns, we have to remember our individual actions and decisions really do matter and make a difference. Most important, we are all part of a community and we need to unite together, even if we can't physically be together. One thing you definitely don't need to do is hoard all the toilet paper. But that's a story for another What If.